After an historic 2025 campaign, it finally appears the Gold Coast Suns have grown up and a clear identity has taken shape under one of the game's most respected leaders, Damien Hardwick. But what comes next? Today we sit down with my old coach to reflect on the season just gone, the lessons learned and how the foundations being laid now are shaping a big 2026 and beyond. Damien Hardwick, welcome to Fox Footy on the eve of season 2026. I feel weird calling you Damien, actually. I'm going to call you Dimmer. But it's an exciting time for the Gold Coast Suns. I want to take a step back and rewind back to season 2025, year two of your tutelage of the Gold Coast Suns, and I want to focus on the last 4 weeks. I mean, the final was fantastic to go and win against Fremantle over there in the first week of the finals after making your first final series. But the missed opportunity of potentially finishing top four. You've always been of the adage that you need to finish top four to win it. Does it still bug you a little bit?
Oh, look, it did. It was a tough back end. To be fair, obviously with the, we go back to the start of the year with the opening round and how obviously the cyclone came through and sort of postponed our game. So we had a litany of things come up against us, I reckon, at that time of year. We had Ken and Travis Boak's last game where Port Adelaide played a brutal game of football against us at a very tough environment in Adelaide Oval, and we just didn't quite handle the moment as well as we would like. And obviously that top four chance really slipped, and it was really disappointing because we sort of were hoping we'd be able to take that jump. And obviously the top four, as you know, is, I don't want to say it takes a little bit of the pressure off, but you sort of feel as if you're a fair chance of, moving or progressing to where you need to go. And then obviously had to quickly back up, I think, on the Wednesday or Thursday and play Essendon and then get on a plane to Fremantle. So it sort of became a little bit overbearing, I'd say. Like, it became a really emotional back end of the year. We were vying for top four, lost that top four, had to play again, then get on a plane, go over to Fremantle, had an incredible win over there, one of the best wins I've ever been a part of, and then back and then go up to Brisbane. So if I'm being honest, I think it just got a bit over the top for us. I think we probably spent all our tickets, and by the time we threw an early punch against Brisbane, but then we sort of found out when you get the champs against the ropes, they throw a few haymakers back.
How do you address the back part of the season? Because there is, as you said, there's the sense of disappointment, and then there's the sense of euphoria. I mean, you said it's one of the best wins you've ever been involved in. You've been involved in some good wins. The way that game finished with your champion David Swallow kicking the goal that was the point. But it finishes in Brisbane against the champs. How do you wrap up the season for the players and for yourself and for your fans?
Yeah, it is always a difficult one because the season just ends so abruptly. As you know, you're sort of always looking with one eye on the future and what that looks like, but then all of a sudden the finality of it is quite soul-destroying, really. And we did speak at length after that game and also the following days just about, the enemy of great is good. If we're happy with where we are, we're not going to be able to achieve where we need to get to. And, you can sit there and be really confident about the product that we put out there, but we've still got to break it a little bit to get better. And one of the things we sort of our coaching group prides itself on is understanding when we do lose what it looks like, and more importantly, the things we have to fix. And that was really important for us to address over the course of, the off-season. Obviously, the addition of, Petracca, Jamarra coming in as well. When we do lose or we are beaten, it's probably a little bit through inexperience or the ability to win ball forward of centre that we do struggle. So those things were in the forefront of our minds. We've got to work and address those issues, and hopefully it leads to a better result in 26.
You mentioned your two big recruits, Christian Petracca, a premiership player, and Jamarra Ugle-Hagan, a former #1 pick. Famously quoted as saying 80% of your premiership team was in your room at the first press conference back in August in 2023. With the addition of those two players, have you got 100% now? Have you got every piece to the puzzle for the Gold Coast to win its first premiership?
Well, I think we've got more pieces. I look at our side and You know, I think the addition of those two, the progression of our players, we're an experienced list, but we still have got a youthful exuberance around that key criteria age, 24, 25, 26, that are still building towards something. We've got a nice spattering of experience as well. So we think we're a step closer, there's no doubt about that. But the fact of the matter is 17 other sides are probably saying exactly the same thing. So what we do know is with the addition of those experienced players, and we also built in some young players through the draft, Ezekiel and Dylan Patterson, Adensel, Jai Murray, Avery Thomas and Coulston. Obviously, we're really excited about what those guys can bring as well. But so whilst we sort of did trim a little bit of our depth, so to speak, experience depth, we were really happy with the top-end experience that we brought in, but more importantly, the youthful exuberance that we brought in to fill those guys as well.
Let's go through them then. Obviously, Christian Petracca, one of the best players in the competition when he's firing. He probably hasn't had the years, in the last 2 years, that many expected. He leaves Melbourne, he comes to the Gold Coast. Where do you see Christian playing and what's he brought so far in the summer?
Yeah, he's been incredible. It's funny, you sort of know a player on the outside, but you don't really know them until they walk into your four walls and you get a great understanding of what makes them tick. And he's what I expected, but he's also more than what I expected. His leadership stuff and... but we're very fortunate. We've got a young captain in Noah Anderson that did a terrific job last year, and people will see the captain that he will eventually become. But having a guy like Christian that's sort of been there and done that is going to be really, really important to him, and he'll grow and he'll learn off him as well, and which will make Noah even better. The role he'll play will be probably similar to the premiership year that he played. Like, we're very fortunate. We've got a Christian and then we've got a young Bailey Humphrey. They're both similar type of players. They'll play effectively that deeper forward and then swap in and out of the midfield. Very similar to one of the players that we both admired greatly in Dustin Martin type, that role. But Christian played that role really well in the premiership year. I think he was AFL 1 in forward half ball gets, which is an area, as we said, that we needed to improve, and Bailey Humphrey's very good at that as well. So I'd like to say I'll have complete control over how those two operate, but what the very good players do, Jack, they just go out there and play, and they'll work in tandem together and hopefully lead to a pretty good result for us.
And one man I think the whole AFL wants to see play is Jamarra. He's had a tumultuous 12 months leaving the Bulldogs, and I suppose getting a lifeline from the Gold Coast Suns. When did you think Jamarra was actually on the table? And it was I suppose it is a risk on getting him. When were you thinking that's a calculated risk to actually pull the trigger to get him to the Suns? Yeah,
we started having conversations in our list management at the back end of the year. Got a little bit of background with Jamarra, like through, when we went to Warrnambool.
Framlingham, where he's from. There's a great photo of that. I think Jamarra posted on his socials.
Well, he looked good. I looked a little bit frumpy back then, Jack, but anyway, we move on. But so I've followed his career closely, and we've run across in circles. My daughter actually manages him as well, and so there's always been that, well, what if? And the great thing about AFL football, and it's probably similar in life sometimes, second chances. Can he take that second chance that we provided him? And what I will say is, when he walks into our door, you've just got to forget the 12 months that he had previous. All we're after him to do every day is to show up and continue to invest in what he's done. And, funny, I gave him this book. I wasn't even sure whether he was an avid reader or not, but it's called The Pivot Year, where you just focus on every day and just keep moving forward and just to understand that this is a year that is really important to it was a bridging year to the rest of your life. And so it's important he understands that. And what will be is fully supportive, and what Jamarra will be is accountable to his actions. So we've been really impressed about what he's brought to the club thus far. You can understand why he was pick one. We've also got to remember he did miss 12 months of football, so he's still a little bit rusty in certain facets. Defence is one of the elements that, you obviously led the charge in that, not. But he's starting to get a greater understanding of that. So he'll be a little bit of a slow burn, but we're really excited about what it can become with, King, Walter, Reid, those type of players.
How do you fit them all in? There's 4 really good forwards there with potential to grow, especially Walter and Reid.
Yeah.
How do you fit them all in?
Well, it's a good question. We need to fit them all in. We're actually trialling Ethan Reid on the wing at the moment, and he's relishing the role, loves it. He won our 2K time trial, so his ability to cover ground is something like I haven't seen for a guy that's 200-odd centimetres. He ran 5.55. So he's really taken that role, putting a couple of our other experienced wingers to the sword with his ability to run. And Jed's a player, we just need him to step up and become the player we know he can be, and he's taken a massive leap forward. This year, you're doing a little bit of work with him, which is always a good one, always to have great players around him to gain experience and talk through. But we sort of see Jed as one of those players. He's a real difference maker for us. You know, Ben King is incredible, had a great year last year, but Jed can be a difference maker for us, and we're looking forward to him taking a big step forward this year. And then we think we can play all three with Jamarra down there as well, because he's a little bit different. You know, his aerial capacity is not quite as strong as Jed, but he's probably a little bit better at ground level. So we're going to have three dynamic forwards up there that I think will keep the defenders' hands full.
You taught me about a guy called Shane Battier, played for the Miami Heat, the ultimate glue guy, the guy that you needed around the locker room. You've let a few of those guys go, you glue guys. Butterick leaves, Ainsworth goes, Flanders is gone as well. David Swallow, who's your last inaugural son, has retired as well. You look to fill the void with talent and really talented kids. Is there a worry in the back of your mind, though, that glue guys has always been a part of the Damien Hardwick structure? Yeah,
and you know, Alex Sexton as well. And we did speak about those, especially at length in our list management meetings, because it's really important, as you said, that there's players that are incredibly important to the fabric of your footy club. And, you know, they might play 18 games, they might play 5, they might play none, but they make your footy club better just by being in there. And that certainly was spoken about at length in our list management meetings. We're very fortunate, though, that we've managed to keep some of those guys around our footy club in different roles. You know, Secco is doing a lot of work in the academy, also does some training for us, and Dave Swallow's working within our organisation as well, because those people are pretty special to what you implement and what you breed in your culture. And as we know, it's not a rollover effect. You've got to build it on every year. But it also creates a bit of space for some others to step up. You know, we've got some really important players that are probably lesser known names, like Ned Moyle and Al Davies are two guys that are very important to our group. They're both very good players, but they're probably in a similar mould. You know, Moyle's a young emerging ruckman that we think is going to be a very good player for a long period of time. And Al Davies is a step in, you know, when one of our midfielders needs a spell or is injured, he's come in and fulfilled roles really, really well. But those two guys are very, very popular within our playing group, and they do make your club better as a result of that. So it was a challenging part of the off-season, but one we think we've handled pretty well.
You're Brownlow medalist. How does it feel when I say you're Brownlow medalist? You've had them before, but now you've got another one, Matt Rowell and Noah Anderson, your captain, who you've spoken about already. What level can they take their partnership to and their games to in the next year and beyond? Yeah,
I think it's quite scary, honestly, because I think both of them have had outstanding years. You know, and in fairness, the Brownlow could have gone either way, to be perfectly honest, with Noah possibly winning it as well. But I still think they've both got improvement left in them, which is a scary thing to say. There's Matt, we'd still love for him to push forward more and kick more goals. And Noah, we're changing his role a little bit this year from his traditional role of last year. We feel with his skill set, we probably used him a little bit in the back half of the ground a little bit more last year. This year we'd like to, with a couple of the rule changes or implementations that are coming in, push him a little bit more forward of centre, because his skill and ball use inside 50 is probably as good as we've got in our side. So that will change for him, which will hopefully lead to another level of improvement and more goals from both those two boys, because one thing they both do very well is win the ball, but ideally we also love goal-kicking mids, so if we can get that added to their skill set, that's going to be a bonus for us. Another talisman you've got, and you've toyed with him playing forward and predominantly back now, but he has kicked a game-winning goal after the siren, Mac Andrew. He's on everyone's radar, Mac. Yeah. And I think you either love him or you loathe him, and I know that you would love him. Oh, yeah, he's an incredible person, Mac, first and foremost. He's also an incredible leader. His growth since, I walked in the doors, he's a prodigious talent, obviously, but to see his growth as a leader has been incredible, and he's had a wonderful pre-season, actually. Last year, he's probably a little bit indifferent with his pre-season, and you learn, you remember what you were like at 21, and how were you at 21?
Not too bad.
That's probably, we digress. Anyway, but you sort of know, you grow up, and, that's what he's done, and to see his growth, both on and off the field has been really, really important, because he's a player that I think could, have a massive jump. He had a good year last year, but he's one of those players who are looking to go from good to great. And, His ability to play down back is very, very important. But as you said, it's always good to have that secret weapon. Well, it's not so much of a secret weapon. Everyone knows that he's going forward at some stage and to kick goals. And he's always one of those guys that when the training finishes, he's always kicking the match winner from the most ridiculous angles, as you know. But he's a very, very important player to our makeup.
You got the most talented list in the competition, potentially. Who's a player that we're not talking about that is your smoke in on your radar?
A guy by the name of Will Powell. You're going to see a different version of Will Powell this year. He's a player that has predominantly played down back. We're going to put him through the middle part of the ground. He is very, very combative, great leader, great user of the ball, and we think he just needs to take that step forward in his career that'll propel us into a... Is it new stratosphere? Yeah.
That's good.
I think he's going to be an exciting prospect for us, so put him in your Supercoach side, Jack.
Oh, I don't do Supercoach, but there you go for everyone that does do Supercoach, so they can chuck him in there.
Look, he's just a...
Is he a good foil for Riewoldt and Anderson? Is that some thinking
well, he
behind
does.
it?
Well, he sort of allows those guys to push forward a little bit more. He's a defensive-minded mid, you know, very similar to those players. I look at a guy like a Josh Dunkley that is a very, very, I shouldn't say underrated player. He's a superstar of the competition, but those players that are combative, can control the midfield and allow others to do what they do. Those players that make others better around them, I think this is Will Powell. I'm looking forward to seeing what he produces this year.
The famous quote, what's in the way becomes the way. How does Gold Coast grow up? I mean, you've used a little bit of a different terminology with that. How do you grow up and go past the Brisbane Football Club? And is it down to the players just believing?
Yeah, it is. And I think we took a great deal of belief last year. Like, this is a club that has always probably fallen short of expectation, if that makes sense, with the list and calibre of talent that they've had. And last year they finally figured out and probably gave themselves permission, it's okay to win, sort of thing. Our biggest challenge now is expectation. And we always speak about this, as you know, the demon of expectation, what that can do to you. And we speak about the process of winning and making sure we just firmly focus on that, because as soon as you start to go to that outcome orientated, that's when we start to seize up and we don't play our best footy. And we went through a little bit of that towards the back end of last year, the Port Adelaide game where something really, really big was on the line, sort of thing. We probably didn't play our moments as well as we did. Whereas then we travelled to Fremantle and probably the level of expectation is to go away and win a final was less, if that makes sense, and all of a sudden we play a bit freer. So these are the challenges that we're working through now, but more importantly, I think our players have got a better understanding of what it feels like and hopefully can respond accordingly this year. Changes
in the AFL. No doubt you've got a few draft emails in your inbox that you would like to send to the AFL about rule changes. Most of them involve umpiring, I think. But there has been some changes. How do you think the last disposal out of bounds in between the arcs is going to work? Yeah, I think we've had a couple of looks at it through some training sessions, and it was quite surprising how little of them there actually are. I thought there'd be a lot more, to be frank, but it's one of those ones that I don't think that rule change is going to be as significant as what we possibly have thought it may be. And, the manning the mark one's really, really interesting. It'd be very interesting to see what sides do, whether they do take the manning the mark to the letter of the law or they do fold off and get that fold back mentality. So we're sort of working through, what we're going to do in certain situations and certain ground placements as well. But I think overall, what we're trying to do is increase the speed of the game, which is great. But I think sometimes there is an overall aspect that we do like defence as well. The ruck nomination one's an interesting one, and it's probably in a different sort of vein for you. You mentioned Ethan Reid will play on the wing. Do you see that as potentially a defensive advantage to be able to slide Jared Witts behind the ball and not have him have to attend every around-the-ground throw-up? Yeah, we're still working our way through that, and I think sides will be a little bit the same, because obviously as soon as one player nominates, then it's incumbent on them to ask, well, the other ruckman, and they're not going to wait. So we're still toying with that and what that looks like. And there'll be some sides that'll sort of, I think, might steal the march in that space. They're probably a little bit further advanced from his scouting reports of what we've seen. I know Geelong always trials some things, and they're doing a couple of things a little bit differently than others. So we're sort of waiting and seeing what that looks like, because obviously we've got a very strong, dominant ruck in Jared Witts, and Ned Morley's his protege and understudy. So ideally we'd like to get those two to more ruck contests than most, but we have got a bit of a secret weapon, hopefully, in Ethan Reid. You're a great storyteller. and you've always been a great mountaineer as well. We've conquered Everest, you've conquered K2, you've conquered the shark fin. What's the mountain that the Gold Coast Suns need to conquer this year?
Yeah, well, probably the thing we've spoken about, and we touched on earlier, it's that every great side to become that side has to jump over another side, you know, and that's our challenge. And, you know, we're probably using a side that I used to idolise as a kid growing up, the Chicago Bulls, and, you know, Michael Jordan and his team had to get over the great Detroit Pistons side, which is a little bit underrated, and how they went about it. So that's what we're sitting there and learning the challenge of at the moment. And sometimes that's through, you know, whether it's Phil Jackson and Tex Winter in their triangle, or whether it's through bringing in a Scottie Pippen or a Horace Grant. So we're fulfilling those pieces and using that narrative to try and find our jump over point. It's exciting though. Like, I'm really excited about what this season can bring for Gold Coast Suns, you know, fans. And like we said, we've got record membership this year and everything's selling out, which is great. But more importantly, we're going to produce on the park.
Well, Dimmer, everything is pointing in the right direction for the Gold Coast Suns. We wish you all the best from Fox Footy, and we look forward to seeing the Suns at the pointy end again in season 2026. Thanks for joining us.
Beautiful. And thanks to Fox Footy. You've always been there from day one for the Suns. Love it.